Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Wednesday. It is the Council of Future Conflicts. My name is Scott, and unlike Monday, I will be hosting the show today with my good buddies Joe and Watcher. Guys, welcome, welcome. Lots of stuff to talk about. We're talking about Israel and the election. So the election portion, of course, will be going to our favorite Italian restaurant to talk about that. But everything else is pretty good, so we'll be covering that in the normal fashion. Joe, how you doing, brother?
I learned something. Speaking of the election, I learned from Kamala's stance on marijuana legalization, which is ironic since she put a lot of dudes in prison for marijuana. I learned that only black people smoke weed and they just can't help it, so we have to legalize it.
Oh no.
It's,
Hmm. Well, you see,
seems it seems a little racist to me, but
I I learned that Kamala Harris wants to make it easier and more profitable for black men to sell drugs. That was that was
yeah,
that
that's
was
true
weird and
too.
interesting.
Well,
What's
the
funny
thing I
is that the person I saw say a comment about it was Kevin from the Hodge twins, who is black, and he said it's not the first time she's bought black people, but her family has bought
well,
black people. But
Joe, I have learned one of the things that I learned from the Democratic Party is that, and I have this on good, is that African Americans just can't help it. They need help, Joe. They need affirmative and positive support in all things that they do.
well,
Um,
what's funny is this: all of everything, every position they have is latent racism. Like when they say, if you don't have migrant workers, who will pick the crops? If you don't have migrant workers, who will build the roads? Well, we will. So, but
right.
it's racist to assume that only illegal aliens do those jobs.
Yeah, I hate. Let's be honest. Black people are just like anybody else. They have the same strengths and weaknesses. They have the same desires and motivations. They are regular people. They don't need special
I,
help.
I heard a great man once say, some might even say most popular president in history, say that poor kids are just as smart as the white ones.
Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable. It's Anyway, by the way, I just want to say, I be like Stormy. Everybody, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Appreciate you, Stormy, our mod extraordinaire. But unfortunately, she's got to go to work. She says, "Hi, chat. Dropping in quick to say hi. I'm at work, so I can't say. Hey, we appreciate you, Stormy. All the hard work you've done. Good luck with the new job." But of Alpha Charlie Concepts is really coming in over the top. No biscuits, but I do have bacon and eggs.
Hey, having been present when that man has cooked up a big old mess of breakfast,
Mhm.
when that guy's talking about making breakfast, you want to be there. You want to be there.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've had good breakfasts lately, but Joe, that on the road Cracker Barrel, like just
Are
biscuits
we
and
doing this
gravy.
story again?
Oh, I love it. Well,
It was
it's like
so
when you
funny.
don't have it, you want to talk about it.
We get the biggest breakfast they have at Cracker Barrel, and Scott's like, "I've been out of the country for 3 years. This might be the worst Cracker Barrel you've ever had, but it's the best Cracker Barrel I've ever had."
I know, right? The best Cracker Barrel is the first one you've had after you've lived outside the
Oh
country
God.
for
Yeah, what
years.
happened to Cracker Barrel, man? They fell off.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like Cracker Barrel. I remember, but let's be honest. Cracker Barrel was never fine dining. It was always essentially a sit down fast food restaurant.
They put the cracker in Cracker Barrel.
You got, I can't believe you guys. See, this is the Bucky's talking. That's what it is.
Yes,
Bucky's supremacy. Yeah.
and
No,
Watch,
listen, man.
as you make your road trip, don't forget there's a new Bucky's in Denver. So
Ooh, a reason to stop in Denver.
There is no reason to stop in Denver.
If there's a Bucky's, there
it's the
is.
Bucky's.
I need me some beaver nuggets.
And
Joe,
for me,
let me.
it's a tough call, a toss up between Alpha Charlie Concepts making breakfast and Tom at the G Camp. If you've ever been to the G Camp, you all know who I'm talking about. And Tom, if you guys are still watching the G Camp this morning, good breakfast, brother.
Joe, can I just say that your Amazon link game is on point the last few days. You're
I'm
raising
just pushing it up there. And you know what? A lot of people say, "Oh, your stuff's expensive that you keep putting." I just put up those little window breaker things for like $9, and you absolutely need like 10 of them. So
Yeah, the interesting thing is that and this is the thing that I like about all the links you put on. Yeah, that from time to time there's some expensive one-ons there, but at the same time, most of them aren't. And as much as people don't need to be, people don't need to always buy what you put out there, but at the same time, going through your links, whether it's on your website or whether it's on what you're sharing on Twitter, is literally like a great start point if you've got some fresh
here's the thing:
money or
there's a
something.
lot of folks right now learning the valuable lesson that it would have been worth it to spend the $500 on a good solar system right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, exactly right.
It's crazy.
Watcher, how you doing, brother?
Good. Before we move on, fun fact about the solar systems: they don't start wearing out until you start exposing them to sunlight. So if you buy it now and don't need it for 10 years, as long as you keep it in the dark, still gonna work when you need it. Anyways, doing great.
The interesting thing about that, if you get one of those the bank, the power bank and solar set, if you don't use the solar part, but you just plug it into the wall, I
Yeah,
mean, you always
works just as good.
exactly right.
Yeah.
You just break the solar stuff out when you need to, right? Or
Well,
maybe like once a year to double check that everything is working fine.
not to get pedantic on that, but I would try and avoid doing what I just mentioned with systems that are combined with a battery, because the battery might not live that long, but the solar panels might.
I
Yeah.
don't know. They're LiFePo batteries. They're LiPo
Ah,
batteries. They're pretty solid. And here's the thing: if you've got a generator and one of those, you can run the generator just long enough to recharge that thing, and you'll get more life out of it, and it will
boom,
be
boom.
less noisy.
And you can control
Uh,
when the noise is up. Yeah, so doing good, Scott. Just, getting having too many good ideas all at the same time. But you know what? I got kind of an interesting package yesterday.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
full
a
of
very
black and white
large,
comics.
very heavy package. Yeah,
Yeah.
full of
Those
comics.
are pretty heavy, aren't they?
The UPS man was obviously not happy. He was a little bit like, "What the fuck, bro?"
It's a little
um,
salty. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what would be cool is if you'd make a little video, just kind of leafing through it. We
mhm,
could throw that up as an update on
for sure.
the. I think that'd be good. And we're also going to be
The print
posting an
file.
update. We're also going to be posting an update for Land and Sea Paradise as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
Are we gonna
I've
share some of that awesome new work Doug's been doing?
Well, yeah, he's got the layouts done for the book. So Land and Sea Paradise, the book is completely written. He's done all the art for the first half, and then we've got the layouts for the second half. So he's just kind of finished the art for the second half of the book, and we're cooking with
Off to the printer.
yeah. Yeah, it's what there's some science here that Hunch is going to educate us on. Here it says Hunch the Dirty Roofer for $5. He says the dinner with the
The
most
diner.
the
Yeah,
diner. I'm sorry, yeah, but it's dinner diner.
I know.
It's all
Yeah.
yeah. The diner with the most semis parked out will always serve the best breakfast. It's science. Yeah.
I have also heard look for the one where the troopers are parked.
What I can tell you based on just a random Twitter post that I've seen, it is also science that Monica Bellucci is perhaps the best actress ever to have lived. The best looking actress. I'm just saying. It's science too.
Moving on.
Hey, it's science. You can't argue
I
with it.
well, if I knew who that was, I might try.
Well, I mean, I can always. I hate to say it, but this is just a random. This is literally just a random post. And Joe, I apologize for the derailment, but I am like the kind of the squirrel chasing the nut, and so well, let me just.
Um, This one?
This is yes.
Ah.
This it's just a clip of her movie stuff. Just saying she's possibly the best looking actress ever to have lived. Anyway, all right.
Hmm.
Gentlemen, speaking of things that
Future
are
conflict between him and his wife. Moving on.
well, I mean, I could look at some aging Italian actress. I mean, the last thing that I saw that she was any good in was The Matrix 2. So I mean, what was that? 20 years ago. Uh, we'll jump into the odds and ends. Anything else, guys, before we jump in? I think.
Yeah, I just want to make you feel old for a second. No, Scott, that was 22 years ago.
I mean, that's not a bad guess off the top of my head.
Oh, made me feel old though. Jesus. All right.
Selma Hayek, I'll fight you on that. Selma Hayek, I'll give you that but I like her more for her total package, if you know what I mean.
I thought you were going to say grand tracts of land.
But. Yeah, well, that's kind of what I meant. I was trying to find a different way of saying it. All right, guys. Did you hear that Jimmy Carter voted for Kamala Harris in the Georgia early voting? The mummified corpse, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say it's appropriate that a guy who's almost dead would do early voting.
Yeah. Well, he is 100 now, right? Is that what I saw?
At least.
Yeah, I know. I think they had a picture of him like he looked like I said, he looked like a living mummy. Anyway,
he looked like one of the zombies on Scooby-Doo.
Speaking of Jimmy Carter, stagflation odds jump in latest New York Fed survey. I mean, it's odd that he and Biden would both bring us stagflation. Go figure. In latest New York Fed survey, as inflation expectations rise, delinquency fears hit a 4-year high. Now we don't have Stan or Jim with us today to really be smart about this stuff. But let's be honest, you don't have to be smart to know that stagflation is a bad thing.
I actually saw Stan on Monday, but yes, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, guys, shit is just too damn expensive, don't you think?
The price of the rent is too damn high. Yeah, but I've been told two things, which are exact opposites by the U.S. media. Number one, the economy is the best it's ever been under Joe Biden, and that Kamala is going to fix the economy. So I'm not sure which one is true.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, I am sure. But neither of them is the answer. Neither of them is true.
Yeah, it's anyway, let me read a little bit of this here. In recent weeks, we've discussed on how his desire to get Kamala Harris reelected by rushing out a jumble cut before November 5th. Fed President Jerome Powell may have triggered the second coming of Arthur Burns' galloping inflation. Fed and sure enough, recent inflationary prints have certainly raised the threat that the Fed is now aggressively easing, even as inflation has not only been defeated, but once again is rising. Then overnight, it was Deutsche Bank's chief credit strategist, Jim Reed, who observed that a 5-year inflation swaps have seen their largest 5-week climb since just before the SVB's collapse in March. That's I can't remember the name of that bank. Anyway, this is stuff that we followed on the show.
Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, thank you. Silicon Valley Bank's collapse in March of 2023, an event that shifted the narrative away from around 4 more hikes to imminent cuts for a period of time. And so essentially what we're looking at is a time where stock prices are an all-time high and the wage inflation is less than 5%. So things are getting more expensive and you're getting less money, essentially.
But this is how they'll report it. Wages are at an all-time high. While that's true, they are not keeping up with inflation, so real wages are actually down.
Right. And here's the other thing too. And then all this is occurring when home prices are still rising at a mind-blowing 6% per annum. So I mean, when you're getting a 2% rise in wages, but there's a 6% rise in home prices, and God, it's double digit inflation for things like food and energy prices and things like that. The regular
You ought to
person
see
just
the
can't keep up.
absolute ridiculousness of land prices and house prices in the Kalispell, Big Fork, Montana area. It's
Yeah.
ludicrous.
It's not surprising in the latest monthly survey, the consumer the expectations from the New York Fed is that inflation rose at both a 3-year horizon from 2.5 to 2.7% and a 5-year horizon 2.8 to 2.9 and remained unchanged at the 1 year. So, I mean, essentially everybody's thinking that, the future is worse than better. Um, Media in response saw gasoline up only 3.4% over the next 12 months, the least in 2 years. I mean, only, right? I mean, when you're thinking 3.4% rise in gas prices is, I mean, and that's not like, oh, the price of oil went up. That's like, oh, well, the price of oil is the same, but it's an increase, just the inflationary increase, not the market increase. Looking at this list here, September 2024, this is a chart. If you go down the next chart, I think, Watcher, these are the rise in prices of different things. Gas is up 3.4%, food is 4.5%, medical care is 6.6%, college education is 5.9%, the rent is too damn high, is 6.3%, and the gold back is up 4.6%. So these are all things that are way more expensive now than they were a year ago.
And this is why I accept gold and silver. And after Kay's class and after much personal deliberation, I now accept crypto. So,
Bitcoin only, right?
no, people get mad because I'm a boomer and I just used one term, and my God, the people went absolutely insane with profanity and I'm like, bro, it's not that important. Calm down.
I'm with you, Joe. For me, the biggest problem with crypto, right? And this scares the most people away, is that they don't know if it's a scam or if it's real, right?
Yeah.
If you know who created this is my easy answer. If you know who created the crypto token, then it's probably a scam, or there is some sort of scammy kind of thing built into it, right? Because that means that it's been pre-mined. It's been, there are bag holders, which are people who don't have an interest. It's essentially a stock for these people who create it. And then regular folk get left holding the bag. That's the one reason why I like Bitcoin, is because essentially the creator created it and then died. And so,
well, I didn't want to enter into a general discussion of it. I was just making a point.
I
But
know.
but no, you Arctic boy, it has to actually be worth something. So,
Well, so I mean, but you said you take crypto. I mean, do you have like an address now that's out there that if people want to send you
and they
Bitcoin
will get
or?
it if they contact me. Yes,
All right,
it's not just sitting out there. So.
I
It was
yeah,
actually a
that's
whole session in case class, and I'll just say it again. If there's a Groundwood 1 class near you and you're debating whether or not you should take it, you absolutely should. So, pretty awesome stuff.
yeah. He's a really impressive guy. We sat down and talked to him when I was back in Montana this summer, and I really enjoyed talking to him. And it's everything you said about the class really makes me interested in being able to check that out, and it makes me excited about things that we could all talk about.
Well, and I'll tell you, I
Once
have
I
his
get
phone
back.
here. Absolutely fantastic, fantastic thing. My phone actually says, "I do not consent to a search of this device" on the lock screen. Uh, and he's building a phone for Brandon at Shield now too. So good stuff.
Very good. All right. So anyway, I just thought if everybody was feeling smug about the world falling apart, at least that your money won't be worth anything after over the next year, especially if a certain outcome occurs next month. So be aware.
I think
All right.
but we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will talk about that later. That's part of the show. All right, let's move on to our next odds and ends, gents. You guys on Monday had an opportunity. I wish I could have been here because there was a lot going on with China, and I know you guys talked about that exercise
with Jim.
Yeah, I know. I was happy he was able to make it to talk with you guys. I saw in the chat that he was going to be there. So 2 days later, we've got a little more information about this, and I think it's Joe. This is one of those kind of things that the irony is that when they actually do the exercises, they're not doing invasion exercises. They're doing isolation and
they're working on blockade.
blockades, right? I mean, these, which is it's funny if you listen to me, you, Stan, and Jim from 2 years ago, 1 year ago, this is exactly what we were talking about, right? It's like the constrictor approach versus some sort of hard war approach, but now that being said, eventually it's going to come to blows when, a USA or a Japan or somebody is going to try to run the blockade, and China has to then decide, are we going to shoot the airplane down? Or are we going to blow the ship up that's coming in? That's the kind of decision point for China, right? If somebody calls their bluff, you get to find out if they're bluffing or if they actually have a whole card there.
Interestingly, if you look at the map of their drills, circled completely in red is Kinmen Island, and that's where I would watch.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing. If they go hard in one place, that might be it, right? Like you basically take Kinmen Island and say, what are you going to do about it? And if the world does nothing about it, then essentially, you're on to the next phase at that point. All right, this is a I always forget the name of this place. South China Morning Post article. What PLA Navy and the Chinese Coast Guard drills near Taiwan reveal about Beijing's plan? Record 17 Coast Guard vessels coordinated closely with Navy vessels in a move described as a highlight of a PLA drills around Taiwan on Monday. Beijing's massive military drills around Taiwan on Monday revealed significant improved coordination between its Navy and Coast Guard, according to observers who said this would be key to mainland China's blockade strategy for the island. A record number of PLA aircraft approached Taiwan in a 13-hour exercise dubbed Joint Sword 2024, with the aircraft carrier Liaoning launching fighter jets towards the island from the east. An unprecedented 17 Coast Guard vessels were part of the drills, as reported by Taiwan, compared to only 7 deployed in Joint Sword 24A drills in May. Beijing's last major exercise staged around the self-governed island that followed Taiwanese leader William Lee Cheng-Ti's inauguration speech, which Beijing slammed as provocative. That was the one where he said basically, we're older than you, so we can't become part of you, right?
They're like, we the real China, and he's not wrong. He's not.
You're
wrong.
the breakaway republics, right? Not us. Yeah, he's exactly right. I felt that was a good vindication for you, Joe, because you've been saying that since the very beginning. It's like make
Taiwan
China,
was very unhappy about it.
make West Taiwan great again. Moreover, according to Taiwan's Ministry of Defense, the Coast Guard ships were also operating alongside PLA Navy vessels on a roughly 1-to-1 ratio in each of the area operation north, south, and west of Taiwan in the Taiwan Strait. According to Fu Quinshou, a military analyst and former PLA officer, the arrangement revealed close coordination between the two forces. The Coast Guard vessel served as a critical supplementary force to the PLA and could play an important role in blockading ports and certain areas in a potential cross-strait conflict. For instance, the Coast Guard could prevent a foreign commercial ship from forcing its way into Taiwanese ports. This exercise demonstrates its coordination and joint operations with the military. Here's the interesting thing, Joe. If Beijing is not committed to all-out war, and they go with a blockade strategy, if you have feckless leadership on the part of the U.S. and Taiwan essentially backs down from a kinetic conflict, then it can work. But China would actually be in a difficult position, I think, if they went for a blockade and Taiwan basically said, if you get within 24 miles of our coast, we will shoot a missile at your boat. And they started shooting missiles. And then, the United States Navy basically said, we will defend ourselves, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We're going to escort in ships. And if you attack them, I mean, that would actually poke a hole in that strategy. It's kind of like a blockade only works if everybody's willing to agree to it, right? But right now, Joe, I think everybody would agree to it because we haven't seen Taiwan be willing to be kinetic, and we haven't seen the United States outside of their freedom of navigation patrols or something like that really stand up to China in any way.
Again, we're applying American logic to an East Asian problem. Xi Jinping is perfectly fine with ruling over the ashes. So,
no, I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to kind of get the conversation started. I mean, because let's be honest, most of our viewers see this problem. They're like, wait a second, what's the problem? We just go in there and kick some ass, like we always do. Okay, we kick ass, and then what next, right? That's the problem.
But what do we get out of that exchange? I'm with Ron here in the Rumble chat, where it's not worth an American life if they're not willing to stand up and do it themselves. Why should we? And
that's right.
I think that if they're willing to make an honest and earnest effort, rather than saying, "But we need the Americans to come do it," then maybe it's a fight worth having. But if they're just like, let's have the Americans come do it. Yeah, Jay Clark, 100% right. The Pacific version of Prosperity Guardian will be so much better.
Right.
Oh my God, the mRNA trolls are back. Let me just wherever.
Do we have? Yeah, there we go. You got it.
Way to go! Now we're gonna have to pick a big pharma day too. Mossad Monday and fucking Russia Friday. Now it's going to be Pharmaceutical Wednesday.
We don't have the naval assets, as Ron pointed out, to be able to step in and lend a hand. So I said, well, you can do it all by airlift. That's a long way across the water. You need some sea lift capability and the ability to protect the seaborne lines of communication. We don't have that in the Pacific right now, because everything we have is in the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Mediterranean.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? I think this would change the calculus around the cost of the cost. If the presidential election goes one way, the calculus changes because obviously the Trump presidency would have a totally different policy than the current, Biden-Harris administration. Now, the problem is, so that's the issue of leadership, right? But one of the things I think that kind of Ron is alluding to is that we don't have the Navy we had 25 years ago. Like we don't have the Navy today that we had back in the 90s. Right,
hold on, because let's be very clear about how sharply this decline has happened. We don't have the Navy we had 5 years ago.
10 years. Yeah, exactly. And here's the other side of that too is that, and this is where most of the let's just kick ass people don't realize is that China has absolutely taken notes from some of the asymmetric things that's been done in the Middle East, and they see the problems we're having in Yemen, and running out of missiles, and this is the same problem that Israel. We're going to talk about this in the Israel segment. The $1 million missile battery, runs out of missiles very quickly. And the $20,000 drone or the $5,000 drone that then comes in is able to do a disproportionate amount of damage. And that's essentially the situation that we may find ourselves in. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the China threat was that area denial, A2, what was it? AD, I can't remember, area denial, anyway. The whole point was using the ballistic missiles to keep the American aircraft carriers out of the first island, second island chain, right? That was the Chinese threat, right? But that's not the threat that I'm worried about. The threat I'm worried about are these, shitty little, maritime militia boats that, every one of them could literally be a drone carrier, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing the power of the seaborne drone in Yemen, in the Red Sea. And
Ukraine has shown
Gophers can run them.
Yeah,
then so can Chinese people. So it's a little bit crazy. I see we have attracted another great follower over on YouTube. Anyway, great sharer of weird information. Probably the same guy. Anyway, we also rely heavily in that region upon our erstwhile allies, the Anzac Navy, right? The Australian, New Zealand maritime forces. And we saw how well they're doing when they crashed into a seamount the other day and lost the ship. So all of these things combine to embolden the Chinese. And if my name was Xi Jinping, there's never been a better time to actually extend this operation and turn it into something real as the thing comes forward. I just said that, Pyrometer. I just said that. But they operate together navally, just for the record.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, and this kind of comes down to it, right? And this is the other side of what would be different. The policies that would be different under Trump is that a lot of that money that's going to other countries would come back to the U.S. So, Philip Coughlin for $9.99 says our Navy is the IJN of 1942, very powerful, but with a glass jaw because we would be unable to replace our losses. Yeah, and this kind of gets back to that point that Ron made here, right? SM-3 missiles are amazing. They are amazing, the things that they can do. The problem is, good thing we're going to build 12 SM-3s this coming year. We shot that many during the last Iranian ballistic missile barrage. It's exactly right. We're not.
And those 12 are going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million for 12.
Right, so. Exactly right. And that was one of the problems that Nazi Germany faced, right? Like they were building some exquisite tanks and jet fighter planes and the Wunderwaffen, right? But all of these things cost way too damn much, and it distracted us from things, cheaper kind of better things that work, right? If you compare American tanks to German tanks in World War II, our tanks weren't as good as theirs, but we had 10 to 1, right? If you have 10 Shermans to 1 Tiger, you're gonna win every time. All right. And so I thought this was just the aspect of this whole thing, and I'm sure you guys talked about this on Monday, but because there was more stuff that kind of came after, I just wanted to kind of bring this up again because it so perfectly illustrates, Joe, what we've been talking about here on the council for quite a long time. The focus on blockade versus attack, but also something that Jim's been hollering about, since as long as I've known him, talking about these exquisite missile systems and things like that being easily overwhelmed by much more numerous and cheaper foes. Stalin's pipe over there. All right, gentlemen. Anything else on this?
I think we're good.
All right, let's move on to. So this next one, Joe, this is one that you shared, and this is interesting, right? Because, Syria was the hotness. What, 10 years ago, 2014? Everybody was talking about ISIS and the Syrian war, and we had special forces in there helping the Kurds and all this kind of whatnot. And then after we kind of did our thing, then Turkey came in and smashed up in the northwestern portion of the Idlib area. And then the Russians were involved. So Syria's kind of dropped off the map. But ultimately, what we're seeing here, this is basically the things that have happened in Syria this week. We've seen a major escalation of Russian air power in support of Syrian forces. Let's see. Tensions continue to rise in northwest Syria throughout the weekend. Russia's Air Force launched its first strikes in the region for at least 3 months on October 14th, conducting 2 waves of strikes. Around midday, Su-24s and Su-34s took off from the airbase there and struck at least 23 separate targets in Idlib and northeast Latakia.
Latakia.
Yeah. That's what happens when you read it too fast. These actions took place during a visit to Idlib by UN Deputy Regional Coordinator for Syria, with video footage later showing him and his staff watching on as it occurs. Later that evening, the same 6 Russian aircraft took to the skies again, launching airstrikes on at least 6 targets. I tell you, this has been a big, the last month and a half has been big for Russian air power. In Ukraine, we've seen them using air power to really reduce some of these defensive positions in the Donbass area. Now we're seeing them essentially doing the same thing in support of Syrian operations in northwestern Syria. Hey, Joe, what do you attribute? What's the significance to you on this, do you think?
I think that this is mostly a demonstration to Israel. So, Israel struck Latakia and Tartus and kind of woke the Russians up. And the Russians wanted to kind of show the world that we're not too bad at this air stuff either. So maybe now's the time to stop lobbing missiles our way. I think that there was just some convenient targets there that could demonstrate their capabilities on. And so they decided to do so. I really think that this isn't so much about ISIS as it is about Israel and letting them know that it's time to stop shooting missiles our way.
Yeah, Russia has said that they stand by the defense of Israel and Israel's right to exist. But at the same time, Russia's got its own game in Syria and its own friends and allies that they have to kind of balance against. This is interesting. What was it? Erdogan said just the other day that he's calling for Syria, Iran, and Russia to work together for the stability of Syria against Zionist forces. I thought that was pretty interesting. That calling on those people to work together against Israel. I thought that was kind of an interesting, Erdogan, he has a way of kind of putting his foot in his mouth in a lot of ways, I think.
Well, it is interesting that the resurgence of Turkish military moves in the region seems to be coordinated with the Russian airstrikes. So I find that interesting.
Yeah. All right. Watcher, anything from you on this?
Nothing. Sorry.
No.
I'm not super up on what's going on in Syria and Turkey. Other than not a huge fan of Erdogan. Kind of hope the guy chokes on a fat one.
What? He's a smart man.
Oh, Erdogan! Don't get me started, man. All right.
That's about as far as my intelligent commentary can go there. Anyways.
All right. Let's move on, shall we? That's a kind of a good move into the next topic. But before we do, Joe, you want to talk a little bit what's going on with tactical-wisdom.com this week?
Yeah, we're starting to get back to normal, so we'll see some more articles and content put out. But I still want to point out that there's a real good one there on what channels you should program into your radio, whatever kind of radio you have. Uh, it talks about the license-free options and things that you can do. And never overlook good old-fashioned CB radios. They're the most commonly available radios in America today. And with the addition of the ability to use FM on CB, it's really improves the sound quality. Also, if you and I, Scott, have FM CBs and Watcher only has an AM CB, he can't hear us, but we can hear each other and we can hear him. So that's kind of a neat little tool. And you can
as a fun
things with it too.
As a fun fact, Joe currently has a brand new CB that is both a car, like can be used in a car and hooked up to an antenna, as well as can be used as a mobile that also does AM and FM, listed on the site now, I think, right?
Yeah, it's on there. The Midland 822, or
I'm
I didn't add
holding
the
it
other
in
one
my
that you
hand.
bought,
Oh, never mind. So I am holding the one that I had in my hand, the Bearcat one that I got, Umarex. Anyways.
Good stuff.
This is a message to my redheaded stepchildren.
Dude, the crazy is strong in the chat. I'm just strong. But anyway,
I like the idea of the World Atlas class taught by Scott McCullough.
I think that's a fine idea. You just pronouncing various place names. So I'm going to do an article with several knife reviews. Salty Medic over on Twitter sent me some knives, and I've got this really sweet Shield Bob knife named after the Bob Marshall Wilderness that I've been playing around with. So we got some good stuff to put out here and talk about. So that will be showing up later this week. We also last night did the first installment of the Tactical Wisdom Bible study, one that me and Miss Allie came up with on our own, and it went quite well. There were quite a few people on there,
Awesome.
some folks from the chat on there, and
very cool.
Good times.
That is awesome. I didn't know you were doing that. That's good stuff, man. What time are you guys doing that Bible study program?
Every Tuesday at 6:30 Mountain, which would be 5:30 East, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. And tonight, I've got a whole large group of guys, 44 guys, in an Every Man a Warrior study that starts tonight at the same time. So we will see.
Well, you heard it, folks. Cool. Get in there.
All right. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'll have my Twitter feed open while we're talking, and all the. Are you guys aware of AUSA, Association of the United States Army? Anyway, the AUSA convention is going on this week, and so all the new hot gear starts coming out during AUSA week. So there's all kinds of new toys that are being debuted at AUSA, and they're all finding their way into the onto the internet. So I just getting distracted by that. So I apologize. All right.
Anyway, I'll also be putting out a schedule for next year's training, and for anyone who's interested, there will be a Ground Rod 2 class here in January at Camp Ponderosa. So we'll be working that out with Kay here pretty soon. So
very cool. Yeah, that would definitely be one to put on the schedule. I mean, for people to look out for, because I think like I said, haven't talked to that guy. Unbelievably smart dude. All right, let us move on with our segment number one today, gentlemen. Is Israel a problem? I mean, I think a lot of Western politicians are asking themselves this question, right? And this is where you're seeing the undertone. It's like, we got this problem in Israel. We're going to maybe cut off our weapons. So the UK kind of says, yeah, we're not going to send you any more weapons. And the US has kind of hinted around on this. Some of the members of Congress have called for this, and other types of actions against Netanyahu and whatnot. But ultimately, thus far, the U.S. has continued to support Israel. But how long will that last? This is a Deutsche Welle article. Is Israel using surrender or starve strategy in Gaza? So, I mean, Joe, this is I like having these articles from time to time because it shows the misinformation, disinformation being used by the specifically the European media in this case. But this is the kind of thing I would expect to see in the next few days in the U.S. media as well. Israel's latest offensive has raised concern that the country is implementing a surrender or starve plan to push Hamas out of northern Gaza. No, they just want to move them out of. I mean, let's be honest. This is what northern Gaza looks like. This picture right here actually is a great example of what northern Gaza looks like for reasons, right? I mean, and these are all reasons we've talked about. And yeah, this is probably not some place where anybody should live, much less, like over a million people. So they are looking to move those people out of this area. And this, because there are still terrorists hiding in there. The Israeli military's latest invasion of Jabalia in northern Gaza will not be more catastrophic for residents who have already endured the bombardments and hardships of the Israeli-Hamas war. Now in the second year, it's dangerous here. Nobody can move. It's risky and unsafe. They asked us to leave, but there was no time. All of a sudden, the area was surrounded and under fire, said Mohammed, who didn't want to give his last name by phone. Almost 2 weeks ago, the IDF launched a new ground offensive in the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza and ordered people to leave the area once again. The IDF said intelligence showed that Hamas, the militant group that runs the enclave, to reestablish itself and regroup in the area. Almost, Joe, it's almost like when the terrorists show up, then the IDF follow them. That's kind of funny how that works, right?
Yeah. So I was dealing with something else, answering a question, but look, this is just you're telling me that the Germans are bagging on the Jews. Weird. Must be a day that ends in Y. But what is old is new again. What is old is new again.
Well, I did see that there are pro-Sharia law protests now in Germany. How quickly do they call for the for those people to be arrested, like they did with the AFD? Oh, wait a second, they probably encourage it.
Yeah, I think that like you mentioned earlier, the rhetoric of Israel starving out the Gazans is a little bit rich, given the fact that all of the aid that we have sent has been stolen and not by the Israelis. So it's crazy. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this kind of gets to part of the reason why here. So, this section here talks about, like, the complaint and then the response, right? So, Mohammed said his wife and 3 children were visiting relatives in the neighboring Gaza City when tanks moved in and airstrikes intensified in Jabalia. He asked them to stay put. My neighbors and I stay close to each other, trying to share what is left of our food. I don't know how long it will last. And then, of course, okay, so who can help? Well, UN. The UN's Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs also estimates that 50,000 people were displaced from Jabalia over the past 2 weeks, while others remain stranded in their homes because of heavy fighting around them. According to OCHA, about 84% of the territory is under evacuation order by the Israeli military. So, the UN is, got the finger on the pulse of this, but, they're not talking about the fact that all the UN agencies were working for Hamas before the October 7th attack, right? And, they were complaining about UN personnel being killed. But, it's like when UN personnel are on the payroll of Hamas, they're a legitimate target.
Facts.
Yes.
I mean, I that may be kind of cruel of me to say, but, to the extent that they're helping terrorists, they are also terrorists.
Get no argument from me, boss.
Well, here's the problem. Like when you think of terrorists, you think of the guy with a gun or the guy with the IED blowing up active soldiers. But for every terrorist, there are like 10 people that have to support him, right? Whether they're collecting money or whether they're providing a safe haven, like a house, like a safe house or something like this. This is one of the things that we learned in Iraq, right? Now, that being said, maybe letting somebody stay in your house is not a death sentence, right? But if that guy starts attacking from your house, then your house becomes a target, right? And so, it's impossible to discriminate. What it's kind of like we've said on numerous occasions. Mosques and hospitals are protected sites. You can't attack them just willy nilly, right? But if terrorists set up inside your mosque and then start using it as a base of operations and or actually shooting from it or something like that, it loses its protected status. Your Arctic boy, member for 3 months. This is his free. By the way, if you are a member of the show, you get a free member chat, which is essentially like a free $5 super chat. So it's kind of like it pays for your membership here. Insert Jeremy Clarkson gif. Oh no. Anyways, right. So I wanted to preface this whole section, about Israel's a problem, because this is how German people are learning about this, right? They don't learn about all the bad things that are happening to the Israelis by these terrorists. They hear about how terrible the Israelis are to these poor civilians who are just caught in the middle through no fault of their own. All right, moving on. So, like I said, you've heard England has threatened. I think that England actually said that they would stop selling arms to Israel. Now, the U.S. threatens Israel with arms shipment suspensions over spiraling Gaza situation. Right now, the irony is that the U.S. has been on record time and time again to basically say, "Listen, do what you need to do, Israel. We co-signed what you're doing." Now, all of a sudden, there's a little bit of buyer's remorse, it seems. The Biden administration is said to be threatening to withdraw key aspects of U.S. military aid to Israel if it doesn't rein in the devastating humanitarian situation in Gaza. Like with prior such warnings, this isn't the first. The message seems to be timed for the November election. Shocking. I am shocked that they would do this. Kamala Harris has wedded herself to Biden's policy on Israel and Gaza, alienating Arab Americans, though there is some interesting movement on that she's been much harsher recently, indicating that maybe she would do things differently, but I doubt it. Alienating Arab Americans in some key swing states, like Michigan, where uncommitted movement is growing. Joe, I know you're not in Michigan anymore, but just with what's your kind of finger on the pulse of that heavy Muslim audience? Are they still voting in lockstep, or is there a little bit of grumblings?
No, they're out in the streets still saying the same thing they said in 2020, that they don't want right or left. They would prefer a Muslim theocracy. So they tend to lean to the left because Gretchen Whitmer's been pretty darn good to them. But if you remember, they threw off that yoke with the LGBTQ education in schools thing. Dearborn is where that fight was won, and they're going to continue to push back on that. So I do think that the left alienates the Muslim vote by going too far, and it gets a little bit crazy. So.
Yeah, Kevin Dorr actually has a good point. Biden has let Israel do whatever they want. That's why, that's the reason why this is a bit rich when you hear them saying, "Listen, we may not give you as many more weapons."
Meanwhile, we've deployed 100 troops in one of our most advanced
weapon systems,
capabilities. So
that's bad. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin this week issued a letter to the Israeli government telling it to take urgent and sustained action to reverse course on the spiraling humanitarian situation in Gaza, or risking seeing select U.S. military assistance cut off. The U.S. has reportedly given Israel 30 days to demonstrate progress. I mean, 30 days. Well, that's after the election. So ultimately, it means like, we'll give you 30 days, but ultimately, we don't care because then the election will be over and we can either A, get back to supporting you, or B, it won't matter because we won't be in charge anyway. The Department of State and Defense must continually assess your government's adherence to your March 2024 assurances that Israel would facilitate and not arbitrarily deny, restrict, or otherwise impede directly or indirectly the transport or delivery of United States humanitarian assistance to and within Gaza. Joe, you mentioned this earlier. Hamas absolutely has scarfed up probably 95% of the humanitarian assistance. I mean, you remember when we had the pier there and we were giving away MREs and whatnot, or those halal meals? They were literally making fun of them for the camera. And then when they weren't making fun of them, then Hamas would take them and give them to their fighters so that they could fight on full bellies.
Or sell them back to the people we intended to give them to.
Right.
Funny thing about U.S. law, it doesn't apply to Israel. So we can say all we want, but it's still up to Israel what they do. And Israel's going to do whatever they want. And no, Matt Grizzly, I wish I was opening a can of White Monster, but the woman that lives here will not let me. So.
Yeah, Pinochet, see how easy it is to get German to hate Jews again?
Real easy. I don't think they ever stopped. I'll just be honest there. They paid a lot of lip service to it. But.
Well, the interesting thing here is Pinochet also says the left is signaling they're coming for religion. The interesting thing here is that their religious allies on the left, i.e. the Muslim majority in some of these battleground states, very quickly will stab them in the back if they feel like they're not being adhered to within their areas. And we saw that in Dearborn, and there are a couple other places in the country that are like that.
What's funny about that is that I made that comment on Twitter like 2 months ago that if given the ability, the left would absolutely outlaw Christianity, and everyone told me how crazy I was. How does that look now? So yeah, look I blinked like 37 times, Josh.
Yeah, where is it? Yeah, we did a. Let's see. Well, so there's a Glenn Greenwald has a post down below here. It says, in a new study from Brown documents the stunning amounts given to Israel over the past year by Biden and Harris to pay for Israel's war. It's $18 billion to Israel plus another $5 billion from the United States military actions for Israel. Yet the GOP grievance is that Democrats haven't done enough for Israel. Here, and this is where it goes back to. Listen, you can help your allies, but ultimately, if you're spending more on your allies' wars, whether it's Ukraine or Israel, than you are on defending the border of the United States or helping American people during times of national crisis, with North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and then Florida got double whammied with their second hurricane. I got very little. I mean, I want to help Israel fight these terrorists, but at the same time, not at the expense of our own citizens.
Okay, so you opened the door, and I'm about to walk through it, and this is not on our notes for today, but it's going to get said.
Here we go.
So, on that note, we're spending millions and millions of dollars to sustain wars because we like wars because they're big business for defense contractors.
Big business. Yep.
And there's a lot of defense contractor money getting raked in on this. But we ran that pier in Gaza despite all of the talk we had of the militia risk in Gaza, right? Those groups are basically militias, and they went around stealing things. We stopped all aid to actual Americans who are dying from a natural disaster because of the militia risk, which turned out to be one guy who merely said he was upset with FEMA while he had a rifle slung on his back, and he was then arrested. Something is not right here, and it is incredibly wrong, and it needs to end.
Yeah, we have articulated our support for Israel taking action against these terrorists, right? I mean, it's they have every right to do that, right? But
But
at
they
the
ought to do it
same
with their
time,
money, not mine.
exactly right, exactly right. And so here's the problem, Joe, that we've identified the same problem in Ukraine, right? And listen, I have a lot of sympathy for the regular average Ukrainian who, they were attacked by Russia because of policies of their government, right? And
Some might
that
say
could,
policies of our government, but the same,
well,
whatever.
when you're on the take, it's kind of like it's hard to know where one stops and the other begins, right?
Right, right.
But the point is ultimately, the only reason Ukraine is doing what they're doing is because we've given the crack addict more money to go out and buy crack, right? It's like when you're giving money to a crack addict and then telling him to get off crack, of course it's impossible, because he's got an endless supply of money for crack, right? But ultimately, what we've seen in both Ukraine and in a lesser so in Israel is that they're able to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do because they're spending our money to do it. So Joe is absolutely right. They can fight whoever they want. They just need to do it on their dime. And you're not going to see us sit here and co-sign Israeli government policy, but at the same time, you're never going to see us say that they don't have the right to self-defense. Everybody has that right. And it's just interesting to see the political football that's being played with Israel's ability to determine what they want to do within their own kind of area of operations. All right. Let me see. Is there anything else on this one? Or is that it? Yeah. The reality is that Washington is unlikely to ever significantly block military aid to Israel, no matter what the actors. And both parties are completely guilty of this. I mean, both sides have absolutely. We've given more money to Israel than any other country. Well, I don't know. With all the billions that are going into Ukraine now, they may have overtaken Israel, but I don't think so. Israel's got a lot more years of the aid than Ukraine does. And ultimately, no matter who's in the White House, I think we're going to see a continuation of U.S. aid to Israel. So there is that to remember. All right.
Yeah. But Kevin Dorr, let me address that. Your biggest problem is that I believe let 10-7 happen. Yeah, there's a lot of feeling that way all the way around. That doesn't change the impact of 10-7 on the people. And just because a government might allow something, that doesn't mean that every single one of their people should be hated for it. I.e., the United States government in 9/11. So,
yeah.
Anywho.
All right. Moving on. Let's see. So what's Israel?
Unpopular thing. Moving on.
Well, no. I mean, what did you say that's really unpopular? I didn't hear anything that's unpopular. It's just true. I mean,
we're supposed to hate all Jews, bro. Don't you know that? It's not Monday anymore.
Oh well, that's true. Yeah, we're not. It's we're not paid to prop up the Jews like we are on Monday.
I mean, what's funny is everyone wants to talk about how evil the Israeli government is when they do the same things that our government does. Newsflash: they're both evil.
Yeah,
they're both evil.
That has been the thing that consistently gets me, is that every single one of these like them Jews comments, you go, bro, you realize that if you hold that up to a mirror, you're talking about us, right?
Well, right, and the interesting thing here is that if you apply the same criticism to Israel that we've applied to Ukraine, everything tracks 1-to-1, right? I don't like Zelensky.
Right.
Well,
I don't know about that. I'm not exactly sure that we could say that Israel has problems with large Nazi populations that are in positions of power throughout their entire government.
You're being way too literal, right? I mean, there are weirdos.
There are extremist small elements within the Israeli government that are on a par with, not necessarily the same ideology, but on par with.
They are hateful, right? They may not be fascist, but they are Jewish radicals who are hateful. That's fine. It's okay because you have that in every society, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking on
I
the
heard a guy
broader
once say that
policy.
World War III would be a collection of civil wars, but I don't
Wow,
remember who that
Sounds like
it's
a
was.
smart guy.
it's almost like we have a war at every continent we can sit here and talk about. All right.
Some say that guy may have been the smartest guy. Personally, I agree with that.
Maybe he's got some tactical wisdom. Middle East, the latest Israeli jets pummel southern Lebanon and Beirut suburbs. Now, while this is true, it's also showing Israel again in a negative light. This is the AP. The AP is very much mainstream American media. Israeli jets struck southern Lebanon in Beirut's southern suburbs, killing at least 21 people, including a city mayor. I wonder if he's been on the Hezbollah payroll. Hezbollah
I was going to
acting
say, I
leader.
feel like there's some key information missing in this story.
Right. Hezbollah acting leader Sheikh Naim Qasim declared Tuesday that the Lebanese military group will ramp up attacks on Israel in response to. Good luck with that. I don't know where they're going to send more terrorists, right? Iran. Airstrike on Monday on an apartment building in northern Lebanon that killed at least 22 people. Israel said it struck a target belonging to Hezbollah, but the United Nations called Tuesday for an independent investigation. Okay, well, independent investigators say, yep, there was a big-ass bunker underneath this apartment building. Shock of all shocks. Israel has escalated its campaign against Hezbollah in recent weeks after a year of near daily exchanges of cross-border fire. It's been more than a year since Hamas-led militants blew holes in Israel's security fence. Once again, October 7th. In northern Gaza, Israel has been waging an air and ground campaign for more than a week, leaving families trapped in their shelters. Let's see. Israeli airstrikes hit a building in the Bekaa Valley, killing 2. So Bekaa Valley is literally the center of gravity for Hezbollah in Lebanon. Just so you know. So if they hit something in Bekaa Valley, then it is a Hezbollah target.
Bekaa Valley has been that way since the days of the PLO and the PLF.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, 100%, Joe. That was back in the days when the Marines were having trouble. I know. Back when the Marines were having trouble, what was it? 82, right? Was when the Marine barracks got
82, 83 when we shelled the Bekaa Valley.
Yeah, that was so. I mean, that goes back way.
That was the last great hurrah of naval gunfire right there.
Wait a second! Didn't we get some naval gunfire into Iraq in like 91?
Barely.
New Jersey?
Barely.
I think that was part of the demonstration force, right? The kind of the deception operation.
Yeah, the Marine regiment that faked an amphibious attack on Basra.
Yeah. What's been interesting is calls for the Lebanese military to begin fighting side by side with Hezbollah. And notably, they are missing in all of the conflicts with Israel. The Lebanese military doesn't want any part of fighting against the Israelis.
Odd, weird. Hey, where are you guys? We're out here fighting. Oh, sorry, Habibi. I was busy this weekend.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a leave form in, so sorry. I got a 4-day weekend.
I was just chilling in Dubai. Oh, did I say that out loud?
I love it when they bury these kind of stories way further down into the Israeli military allows 50 aid trucks into northern Gaza. Israel's military says it has allowed 50 trucks of humanitarian aid into northern Gaza. Joe, I thought we just heard that there is no humanitarian aid getting in there, that these people are down to their last meal. Let's see. GOCAT, the Israeli military body in charge of civil affairs in Gaza, said that the delivery was made at the direction of the defense military, the defense minister, and the political echelon. So basically, the politicians care about taking care of the Gaza civilians. Go ahead, Joe.
The Israelis are as bad at genocide against the Gazans and Palestinians as we are about our genocide of the Native Americans, who are not Native nor American. So,
yes. anyway, I just wanted to kind of once again show the focus on the Israel problem, and how the media is kind of perceiving that. So this kind of is a problem. This next story kind of gets to a problem that Israel's starting to face, that we would face if we fought China, and let's be honest, we would face this if we fought any determined foe over a large period of time.
Scott, what? We would face this problem if we tried to fight a gang in Mexico.
Or Dallas and Aurora. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. Come on now. I mean, we wouldn't be shooting down ballistic missiles from the Gulf cartel.
Yes, I totally believe that Iran and China would view that as off limits to supply missiles to the Gulf cartel. And we totally have the Navy to do interception of all of the Chinese frigates that are coming to Mexican ports. 100%, man.
I think that IRGC may get in there to help the cartels, but I just don't think they're going to be able to smuggle large ballistic missiles through the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, call me crazy.
Not necessarily ballistics, but I've seen a dude with an NLAWS on his back down there.
So. You really don't have to smuggle it through the Gulf of Mexico when you can just drop it off at the Yucatan, or even better, just drop it off on the other side of Mexico where they actually want it, where the Chinese ports are. That would 100% allow it in.
Let's be honest. It would be easier to get them in through South America, coming through from Africa, than it would be to come in from the Pacific side, because there ain't nothing to hide from in the Pacific. That's actually one of the
areas where we totally have the ships for commercial interdiction in the Pacific. Totally, 100%. Mm-hmm.
No, but we do have the satellites to be able to see them.
Yes, and what we see are a bunch of commercial ships, and then we go, I wonder what's on them. And then normally what we do is that we send boats out, and then those boats board it, and they figure out what's on it.
I'm gonna agree to disagree with you, Watcher. I just don't think that the cartels being supplied by Iran is now China. Maybe they're proven partners in the fentanyl trade. Maybe that would be a different story.
Okay, yeah,
but
China,
but even then,
China,
it wouldn't.
China and Iran are definitely not proven partners.
Watcher, listen, Watcher. The threat wouldn't be ballistic missiles. It would be what Joe just said: NLAW type weapons and things like that, right? So, I mean, we're just talking about apples and
border patrol vehicles with an NLAW.
Exactly right. That's what
IEDs.
That's what it would be. It wouldn't be Scud missiles coming in from China or Iran.
But to this image right here, this is like Deatica just points out in the chat that picture is the meme. My tax dollars, somehow also my tax dollars.
Yes,
exactly
really
right. Exactly right. Now back on schedule and on plan here. Israel's supply of interceptor missiles under strain amid daily assaults. It's almost like these rockets that they're shooting down are cheaper than the missiles they're using to shoot them down with. Israel's been at war on several fronts for more than a year and is rapidly expending ammo and missiles, especially as it tries to shoot down, which are now dozens of projectiles daily sent by Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. Hezbollah is estimated to have an arsenal of hundreds of thousands of rockets and drones of various sizes. Israel's formidable air defense systems have regularly been engaging inbound threats, sometimes expending hundreds of interceptors a day. And this was particularly true during the October 1st Iranian ballistic missile attack. Now, the interesting thing here is Israel has done something that we have failed to do, and that is to bring the price of one of these kind of wonderful interceptor missiles below $100,000. The Tamir interceptor missile that Iron Dome shoots is actually relatively inexpensive. The problem is it's still way more expensive than the missiles it's shooting down. It's good, but not good enough.
And it's still unfortunately needed in the handfuls per launch, right?
Well, usually there's less interceptors shot than there are rockets. They're getting pretty canny at discriminating. But yeah,
accurate,
you're right.
But what I mean is that every time Iran wants to throw anything up, we're expending a couple $1 million worth of missiles. So
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, a couple million, that's probably accurate. Especially if they're in the dozens and dozens of interceptors that they're shooting. A new
I want
Financial
to tell
Times
you all,
report.
you all almost saw me have a heart attack live because I glanced up at the window and Mrs. Tactical Wisdom was standing outside of it, and I didn't know she was there, and I just saw a human being at the window. So there was almost gunfire. It would have been really bad, but we're in good shape now.
Joe is wives have the ability, unlike any other person, to sneak up on their husbands.
Yeah,
It's like we
absolutely.
we automatically assume that they aren't a threat.
No, it was rude to almost give me a heart attack, ma'am. You said it was rude of me to say I almost shot through the window.
Uh,
It's that Office meme, literally. Jesus.
Yeah.
Israel faces a looming shortage of interceptor missiles as it shores up its air defenses to protect the country from attacks by Iran and its proxies, according to industry objectives. That's the other thing, too, Joe. I wonder how much they're holding things back because they're worried about more capable attacks from, say, Iran or something like that. The U.S. is racing to help close the gaps in Israel's protective shield, announcing on Sunday that the deployment of a THAAD anti-missile battery, that stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, ahead of the expected retaliatory strike from Israel on Iran that risks further regional escalation. Yeah, let's see. U.S. defense official says Israel's munitions is a serious issue. Uh, she is a pro-Israel. Let's see, Stroll is a pro-Israel, anti-Iran hawk. Big surprise there. Has described that if Iran responds to an Israeli attack with a massive airstrike campaign and Hezbollah joins in too, Israeli air defense will be stretched. The U.S. can't continue supplying Ukraine and Israel at the same pace. We are reaching a tipping point. Yeah, that's interesting. That right? It's like if we have to choose where the support goes, where does it go? The fact that Israel is getting THAAD makes me think it goes to Israel, not to Ukraine. Boaz Levy, CEO of Israeli Aerospace Industries, which produces the missile interceptor, says some of our lines are working 24 hours, 7 days a week. Our goal is to meet our obligations. And so the thing to remember is that Israel they may make the missile, but there's a lot of U.S. and Western components that go into these missiles. So this is from the Quds News Network. This is Palestinian media. They've taken note. Supply constraints and the demands of the war have left the Israeli military relying on the U.S. to fill the gaps in their protective shields. In recent days, the United States announced it's deploying anti-missile system THAAD to Israel. So even they are now kind of using this in their talking points against Israel. During two separate rounds of Iranian missile attacks on Israel the past year, the United States has deployed warships and fighter jets to assist Israel in shooting down inbound projectiles. But systems like Iron Dome, Arrow, and David's Sling remain vital to Israel's daily defense, especially given Hezbollah's ramped up attack on the north of late. The U.S. has now sent the Army's THAAD missile systems. Will the U.S. ever cut off Israel? It is unlikely, given that both sides of the aisle tend to be led by Israeli firsters, and sadly, the presidential race is no different.
I just want to point. I want to point something out before we move on. Well, ask a
Yep.
question before we move on. Which news organization do you feel is more like, it's just kind of fun here? Which news organization is filled with more fanatical, idiotic religious zealots? CNN or QNN?
Well, that's a trick question because they both are, have radical religious. They're just different types of radicals, right? One are non-sectarian, neo-Marxists, and the other are, secular neo-Marxists, and the other are
Our austere religious scholars.
Exactly. Trick question. They're the same thing.
Make nation states pay for their own wars again. I think that's a great way to go.
Oh, I think that's all we have for YouTube today.
I know if you're on YouTube only, today is your lucky day to come and join the fun over on Rumble because that's where we're going. Round the chat real quick, guys. Final thoughts for the YouTube crowd.
We're about to talk about fun stuff, so let's get over there. Uko Steve, we're gonna talk about that because that's a misconception. Newsflash: you've always been a target of your government. All they did was just reprint it. And I want to point out, like I did in both chats, there are still a couple of seats left in the Tennessee Fieldcraft class. So if you want to hang out with Josh Clark and his awesome dad, Doc Clark, and me in the Tennessee hinterlands, let's do it. Check it out at tactical-wisdom.com.
Let's see, real quick before we call it a day on YouTube, let's check it out. We got 55 likes. If you're in YouTube and you haven't hit the like button, please do. And then once you do, follow this link over to Rumble and check out the rest of the show. The reason, if you're new to the show and you're not aware, the reason we go over to Rumble is because they treat domestic politics a little more kindly than YouTube does. So we avoid the ban hammer and the censorious trolls on YouTube. So, all right. Watch your final thoughts, and then let's head on over.
I see Todd is in the chat. Hey, Todd, I miss you, boo.
Just thank you, chat. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit the like button and leave us a comment on your way out.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you over at Rumble. Thanks, everybody.
2, 0, 1.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone.
3, 6, 4, 6.
The chair is against the wall.
3, 6.
The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5,
John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5, 0, 9.
It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.